And welcome to another Gateless Live webinar. This is webinar number 5 for us, and it is brought to you by the Guaranteed Rate Companies. These webinars live on the Gateless site, gateless.com, your path to unlimited success. Today, we are thrilled to have Emily Sachs-Wong with us from At Properties. Today, Emily is going to tell us exactly how she has achieved the amazing success she has at 170 million consistently, been in the business 20 years. But welcome, thank you, appreciate your time. How about starting with a little introduction, how long you've been in the business, the market that you're in, so our viewers from across the country know what we're chatting today.
Thank you. So I used to be a caterer. I had a really hard time in the catering business because it's a thankless, low-paying, 24-hour-a-day industry, and which I loved. But my dad told me to get into real estate, and it was the best thing I ever did. And I happened to live in Lincoln Park, which is a really beautiful area in Chicago. And I got in, and I made it my business to work as hard as I could. I was used to working really hard, and it worked out. So.
Here we are.
Yeah, here I am, 20 years ago.
As for kind of context, your current team, how many people work with you and what their roles are and how the team came together? You have kind of a rock star, all-women team.
Thank you. So there are 8 other women that work with me, and they range in new to the workforce to having been in the workforce for quite some years, but all of them really invested in real estate and fabulous in their own right, fabulous brokers in their own right. And I have 3 full-time assistants that work with me doing anything from marketing to keeping me organized to helping with the details of pictures and floor plans and the behind-the-scene things.
And as you grew, the team grew, and you're in a good place right now.
Oh yeah, I mean, it first started out, it's hard to get that first assistant, right? It's hard to go from nothing and you're finally filling your pockets and you have to know, is it okay? Should I take that step and get an assistant? And I would always say, get that assistant as quickly as you can, even if it feels uncomfortable.
Scary.
It's like taking on a mortgage, right?
The scary point for a lot of agents is to take that first step.
Right.
What do I pay them? What's their role?
Well, they're going to tell you what to pay them.
So my first question is always, like, thinking back in your 20 years in the business, in your opinion, what do you think was kind of the game changer? Or what point did things take off, and what do you attribute your current success to?
Well, I tell everyone who's starting that it is imperative that you be available 24 hours a day and that people see you 24 hours a day. And so before I ever had an assistant, I did 2 open houses every Sunday. I knew every open house that was going on so that I could just have conversations with people. And I think that the big thing about it is just taking the time to be real one-on-one with people. So everyone today has access to anything they want online, but what they really want is a relationship. So there are plenty of agents that choose to only be transaction-based and that they don't need that one-on-one interaction. But particularly in what I do, which is the luxury market, I think it's the only thing they can't get from a computer.
Especially today, like you said,
right.
Everyone has access.
Right.
Access.
So the knowledge, the information, all of that wrapped into the relationship is really the most important part of my business.
And being the expert, and that just comes over time, and you were working in the catering biz in the same neighborhood, but just knowing your market.
Well, at first I didn't know the market, but a big part of it is being better than you are before you are. So my dad got me this book that was called Walk Like a Giant, Sell Like a Madman. And I still recommend it. I keep it on my shelf in my office. And I went out and I bought a used Audi. That was all I could afford. I was $40,000 in debt. And I, had a couple of really nice outfits. And I was 27, 28 years old. So I had to be bigger than I was because that's hard. That's a hard age to get people to trust you. So I acted more professional than I was. I didn't go out partying. I really I really was available to people all the time, and I sat floor, which now really doesn't exist, but the same thing is just being available. So if someone emails you, you're emailing them back immediately. Or if your phone's ringing, you're answering the phone. I mean, I took a call on a $9 million listing the other day that someone said, you know, hey, I'm just calling to talk to you about it. And he's like, I can't believe you answered the phone. And in my mind, I was like, I'm so glad I answered the phone. So.
Walk like a giant, sell like a madman. Great
Yeah.
stuff. Communication and being available. Obviously, you're not answering every call. After knowing what your team is like, how does that communication work, whether it's a call or an email, or I just moved to Chicago and I know what you're enabling?
Well, I do like to control things, but I finally gave up showings. I had to. That was something, you know, at some point you have to say, okay, what can I no longer handle? And so showings goes directly to a showing assistant. But my name is on the signs, my number is on the signs, and I like to talk to people. So, you know, more than half of the calls are, of course, diverted just from showing requests with other agents. But if someone's walking by a sign, they're getting me. I also have phone tag on my phone, which was one of the biggest game changers in my life, along with DocuSign, that helped me with time, because if I have a message and it's something that's not in my wheelhouse, and I can forward it to one of my partners and say, could you please call this person? So those little sorts of details have helped me, and I know certainly younger agents are all over those technology things, but maybe if someone's my age or isn't so technology based. And I'm not super technology based. I am in my car for 8 hours a day driving around with my iPhone that I run my entire business off of. So I need those that are in the office on a computer.
Right. And I mean, with your strength and relationships and your reputation's great here, tell us about how you, in the luxury market, kind of stay connected to your clients, your database. You're not sending a refrigerator magnet at this point.
Well, I did. I sent plenty of refrigerator magnets 20 years ago with restaurants, and honestly, I still see them in people's houses. Like, they'll have them. I'm like, oh, that's the best. But I do other things. So, you know, maybe in the spring, I'm sending umbrellas to 5,000 people. So it seems funny, but like not cheesy umbrellas, but nice luxury umbrellas. And maybe in the fall, maybe I'm giving like an amazing, you know, other little gift of some sort, but definitely gifts. People like gifts. People are thankful for gifts. And when I write the check for the olive oil in December, it's a lot, but I know that it's part of what I feel most comfortable with, and that's spending money to make money.
And that's something you've done throughout your career. It's just kind of scaled as you.
From the start, as I mentioned, I was incredibly in debt getting into real estate, and as we all know, it's you know, how much you work and what you bring in is how you feed yourself. And I didn't have money, but I went out and got pictures taken, and I did advertisements in our Chicago Social, which is like a, you know, luxury magazine here in Chicago. And people were calling, and I'd get some really silly calls and people asking me on dates at the time. But I think for a lot of the part, it was name recognition. And then eventually name recognition, I turned that into brand recognition, and I turned myself into a brand, which I am. And that's something that I've really been grateful for, the ability to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and your branding was one of the strengths, and from the website to the look and feel of the signage, the listing presentations you want to get into, like top notch. You were involved in the branding and the design and, you know, the consistency of it everywhere.
So I think a big part of it is, again, back to that, not everyone grows up in the same way, not everyone has the same, you know, education level, but we all can get to the same place. It's like a My Fair Lady story, right? Where she becomes this phenomenal thing. So I didn't grow up in a $9 million house by any means, but if those people want to know that you are capable of that. And so you have to show them every step of the way, whether it's the marketing material you're bringing in or the the things that they see in the local advertisements or online. You have to exude luxury if that's the market you're going for. If you want to capture the development market, that's a whole different avenue to go down. So when I bring something to their house, I am taking money out of my pocket before I ever make. And sometimes I have a listing and it doesn't sell and I think, oh my gosh, I'm into this thing for $5,000, and then I have to remind myself, okay, but I probably got so much more out of that from another listing that came in. So it's hard to think big like that, but it's really important to. So when you go out and you place that ad, don't think, oh my gosh, it's too much money. It's not too much money. You have to plan it out and map it out, but it's important to not let that initial dollar scare you.
Well said. And kind of the topic today is sell quicker, list higher, and your listing presentation. I wish we had one here. We had one from a couple of years ago, but I didn't want to sell you short. But tell the viewers about your current listing presentation, how it came together, and how it's evolved and what it consists of.
Well, I'll tell you that At Properties is very forward-thinking in everything that they do, and they have, for all of the agents, a beautiful box that comes with all of the information about the company. For me and my brand, the box is black. And as I just mentioned to you, I don't do black. It's just not my color. I'm kind of a white and blue girl. So my box is blue. I had something made for me that suits my image. And again, does that cost more? It does. It's not free from my company. I have to do that. But that's something I'm willing to do to keep everything looking the same way because, again, I'm a brand. So these sort of details, don't let them overwhelm you, but know that no detail is too small. And so I have this box. At Properties now has an online presentation. Everything is digital. I have that. I like to talk to someone though, and if I'm scrolling through the screen, for me, it's just not as personal. And I do think that people like to go through and look at it. Now again, because I'm in the luxury market, my presentation is typically to someone who is used to paper. If I were going in a different listing presentation, I might bring that along, but also do digital because if I feel like it relates more to the person I'm seeing. So I think that's important to know your audience. And so I do have a very luxurious box. People sometimes bring it back because they feel so bad, like it's wasteful, and I appreciate that. That's so nice. But it makes an impact.
But it's something during the presentation you talk about the relationship. It's more than just the website or something else. It's something you can kind of. It's part of the presentation.
Right. Well, we all have access to everything online now. Anyone, no matter what they do or don't spend. So to make your added value, what is that going to be? What does that mean to you, and what do your clients want? For me, I found what my clients want, and it's been very successful. They want to know they have access to me. They want to know they have access to my knowledge. And they want me to be available 24 hours a day, which I sleep a little bit longer now, but otherwise I'm available.
Yeah. Another topic is kind of the time management. So big struggle for agents. Some agents seem to be, driving, phone, they're just kind of reactionary. But tell us about a typical day for you and for your team and how you guys handle the business.
Yes, well, Mary Selman, who's been with me for a long time, is like the backbone of our organization, and she gets in before everyone, and she is busy making sure that everything is set for the day and beyond. All of my partners have access to our calendar and know what's on their agenda for the day. Some of them are going to listing appointments. They all have their own business in their own right, which is different than probably a lot of people operate their teams. But I want everyone that works with me to thrive and not feel like they can't be their own agent. But they work under my umbrella, and they, I think, like that, and that gives some value added for them as well. But my day, I am racing from, a workout. You have to at least move your body and get your mind clear, and that's super important to know where you have to go for the day. And I'm in my car, on my phone, checking texts on the curb. I a lot of times don't even go into my office when I have an hour. I pull over in front of my office and I'm always working, but it's my office and I feel super comfortable in there. And you know, everyone in my office knows that that's what how I like to work. It's just easier. I have everything there with me and it's my little cocoon. And so if anyone wants to invent like an apron to wear while you're in the car, so for keeping food off, that would be the best, right? So, but you know, it's just super busy. I'm answering the phones. I'm not putting people into voicemail as often as possible. I'm doing showings at listing appointments and a lot of troubleshooting because deals don't always go smoothly. And it's imperative to, again, for me in my business to be available and to be the one that it's like the glue.
Yeah. And do some questions. This is great. Questions on the fly. So what's the most important part in that listing presentation you just talked about that you feel sells you and your potential client? I know there's lots, you know, especially people with limited budgets, like what are the...
Well, that's great news, and I'm glad you brought that up because I do a ridiculous amount of marketing and advertising, and yet frequently, I shouldn't say frequently, sometimes I lose the listing, right? And I think, how could they have gone with that other person? They do nothing. Well, you know, they must have clicked more with that person. And so even though I have all of this amazing marketing and advertising, so I think, again, the best thing you can be is to really connect with whoever it is that you're talking to and be a bit of a chameleon for what they want. So if the people are conservative and, you know, maybe play it down a little bit and make them feel comfortable because that's what it's all about, is to make sure that they're going to feel comfortable with who they're going to spend a great amount of time with, be it on the phone or, you know, online, whatever. You want to make sure that they feel good about who they're working with.
Yeah, well said. One more, Jake, how do you maintain that balance between feeling you have to respond immediately and staying connected and then setting time for yourself and your family and your daughters that you're just telling us about?
Yeah, I've got 4 kids.
You have to, there's got to be a way to prioritize some time.
So from 9 to 5, and that's the bare minimum, but during those hours, I think people want to be able to get you. So I try to take the phone call or return the call immediately because I don't want it to pile up. And for me, at 8 o'clock after my kids are doing homework or something, to have to go back and call people. I think that it depends. If it's a really, you know, if it's a millennial that I am talking to, I can talk to them anytime. But if it's someone who's got a big family and it's, you know, you have to know the boundaries and you have to be sharp enough to be aware of what that person is likely doing at that time. And those people will probably call you at the same time whenever they want to talk to you, right? So if it's 8:30 in the morning, that's the time that they're available. You better figure out how to be available during that time. So as far as, you know, marking off time for myself, that's why I wake up early.
Yeah. What time do you wake up today?
I get up at 5. Yeah, because you got to work out.
Yeah, you first. Yeah. And for the listing, you know, higher part, and pricing is a big topic. What's your philosophy on setting that price and having those conversations with the seller and everyone thinks they know what their place is worth? So talk about your, you know, strategy on pricing and then your philosophy on like negotiating for that price to be able to sell so quickly.
So I'm sure everyone has had the seller that calls you on the phone, they want a listing presentation, they're in no hurry. No one's ever in a hurry when they call you. They're in a hurry 30 days later when their place hasn't sold, and it's time and time again. So today I was on the phone with a new potential client, and she said, you know, I just want to let you know we're not in a hurry. And in my mind, I said, do I tell her now or do I tell her then? I'm going to wait, I said to myself. I said, okay, great, I'll see you. But the fact is that if your property's not sold in 30 days, you're at the wrong price, and you not being in a hurry isn't going to get you a better price in the end. And I will tell that client that when I meet with her. Whether she hears it or not is another thing. But right now, you know, I think the market is a little uncertain. I think that with all the things that are going on in our economy and our world, some people feel great about it, some people feel uncertain. But I think that it's important, no matter what's happening, to price it for the market. Because if it's not sold in 30 days, the market's not as interested later.
Great. And a reminder to send your questions. Didn't mention at the beginning, people are, they're rolling in, but the question feature in your webinar screen, we're happy to answer them live. On the, selling point, I think one of your strengths is kind of targeting the buyer and knowing who is the person that you see in the house instead of just the shotgun,
Yes.
marketing for one of your properties.
So one of the reasons I love to do showings, and I do as many as I do, is because whatever I'm showing them is not the right place. I say to them, how does this work? And depending on what kind of a relationship they have with, like, let's just say their buyer's agent, I love to say, I really think I know the right place for you. And I do that all the time. It just recently happened. These folks didn't come and see another listing of mine. And I said, please come. I'm not sure why you didn't see it. I think it's going to be in your range. And they bought it. And I can tell you this story many times. So again, it's like matching. It's like, matching people to houses. And if you see enough properties, and if you're new and you're just getting started, go to every broker's house. You do not see it on the photos. You aren't going to understand that property. And to be able to say to a client, I've been in that house, I've been in that house, and to be able, that's part of your knowledge. That's your job. You've got to do it.
Expert. I'll wait till you organize so there's lots rolling in. So you're, luxury homes, condos, work with developers, talk about the different niches, how you work with developers, how long you've been doing that, and maybe tell others who want to add that to their book of business, how they can get into the working with developers,
Right.
especially in certain cities.
Right. Well, in 2005 is when, at that point, I had my biggest year. But I sold and closed a big development in Lincoln Park, and that was really my foray into working with a developer. And actually, I worked with a guaranteed rate agent who came and sat on my open houses with me. And it was a really fun experience. And from there, I realized that I really did like working with developers. I had an asset that I could lend to them, and that was experience in construction. I grew up on construction sites with my dad. He was a developer. And if you don't have that, you can figure it out. And also, I had a knowledge of, because of all the luxury houses I had been in, of design and decor and being able to help them. And in the price range, that was not a very expensive price range of this development. And that developer had his own flair, but I was able to help people see these blank spaces and help the buyers understand what they could do. And so that's a big part of it. It's more of your research that you as the agent have to do. If you've got a design district in your town, go to the design district. Frequently, not just once a year, see what the trends are. If you live in a neighborhood where you don't have a design area to look at, go to different furniture stores, look at magazines, see how people are pairing things, what they're doing. I use everything from movie sets to anything as knowledge, so that when I'm in a house and it's funky, let's just say, or dated, and people need to do things, I say, no, you don't need to do a lot of construction. Here's what you should do. And I show them instances and ways that they can use just decor and design to get past maybe some of the struggles they have, again, getting more sales.
And all of your listings have that same, it's like almost, are you involved in, the pictures are beautiful, obviously, but the staging and making sure everything kind of meets your standards. Tell me about that process. I come to you to sell my home, and how is it prepared, and how does that listing put together?
So I can't tell you the number of times I've been online looking at pictures and I see like a bedspread that's cockeyed and I lose interest. And if I lose interest, I'm sure other people are losing interest, and it sounds so tiny. Like, why is that ugly towel cockeyed on the towel rack or something? But it's just like when you sell a house, if someone starts saying negative things, they move on. Well, the same thing happens with pictures. If they start seeing things that aren't of interest to them, they move on. And so, yes, everything has to be perfect. And to the point where everyone on my team knows how it has to be, and there's training involved, so that it has to be, because I'm there and I'll show you how to make a bed. And it looks a lot different. And Katie Bishop, who works with me, she's amazing at staging. And so, like, everyone on my team, like, knows.
Hands-on.
They know how to get it done, and they truly it makes a difference. Just even how a bed and pillow show, and if they're frumpy flat pillows, no one's buying that house. They're not, they're getting a lesser price for it. So what's a pillow or two?
Right, that's great.
And buy your own pillows for your clients if you have to.
There you go. No detail, too small. And so it's consistency with everybody. And kind of getting back to the team dynamic, do you and your team have set meetings? Do you set goals? Is it a weekly get together? Do you huddle and talk about what's going on? Like you being so busy and knowing that they're operating, back at the office, how does the work team dynamic and the communication work with you guys?
So everyone in my office knows that I don't like to babysit. I don't want, if I have to tell you how to do something and you don't understand after the first time, it's likely not going to work out with us. So on my team, everyone is very autonomous. We communicate via texts and emails, and there are times, a number of times during the year, we get together socially in a respectful way, not in a drinking way, because you never accomplish anything. But I'm not a weekly meeting girl. I don't think that from my team, that doesn't benefit us. I don't want to tell you how to do your business. If you don't know how to do it, you shouldn't be on my team. Everyone is amazingly professional, and I think they appreciate that I don't babysit. And there are times that we'll call a meeting because, let's just say, I've noticed walking up to properties, there are newspapers and people aren't being as fastidious as they need to be. I see agents, when I'm the buyer's agent, I see them walk over the newspaper and don't pick it up, and I think, oh my gosh, they wouldn't make it on my team. Can't do that.
Are you looking to get growth team bigger? Any
I don't think at this point, but I mean, sometimes a spectacular person presents themselves and I think they would be great. And then, of course, we can make room, but I think that we're a pretty happy group and we get a lot accomplished. Everyone is willing to work really hard.
Right. Here's a good one from Terry. How does that conversation go to tell someone that they need to make improvements to their property, for example, paint repair, get their ugly furniture out? It saves explaining to them that this is how we do it, but it's at a cost.
So I'm always very upfront, and maybe to a fault. And so I've actually started changing my ways a little bit and not telling people at the listing appointment unless they really are asking. Because some people are sensitive and they don't want to know the things that they think are silly and that don't make a difference. So I need them to get on and train and believe in me before I start pushing those things. Lately, and I think they've learned either on the internet or they've learned somewhere, sellers will say, hey, can you stage my place for me? And I think, gosh darn it, whoever started doing that the first time, now I've got to do this. But you know what, if it's worth it, you'll do it. I've got someone who asked me to stage for them, and you have to take money out of your pocket and do it, but it was a really big listing, and I took that opportunity. I said, okay, I'm willing to work as a partnership. But for the most part, I think that sellers need to, that's part of the partnership, is that they need to come to the table with a house that's ready to go. But I do think that you have to judge your audience again, being really intuitive. Is this someone who can do it on the first time and know that at the first meeting you're going to tell them all the things that are wrong, or do you need to wait and say, thank you so much for the listing, could I come over and walk through the house and see if we need to do any staging or take care of any details?
One more on the topic of marketing, and two different levels of agent, maybe the new agent, and what are some basic takeaways that they should focus on without the big budgets, and maybe the agent that's where you were 5 years ago, where you're starting to get a little too busy for your own good, and what you did when you were there to be able to settle into your 8-person team now.
So again, it's all about gaining that knowledge. So if you've got time and you find that you're able to go to the health club in the middle of the day, I would suggest doing something else, like changing up your day and making those business hours time of focusing on your business. So if you don't have the cash or the ability to do those things, I would make sure, for example, that you're doing 2 open houses on Sunday, but not only are you there, that you're present, and that you have something to give people, and that you know more than just this. I've walked into open houses and the agent's sitting there writing, doing something. Go ahead, walk through. I think, walk through? What are you here for? We could just leave a key box or do something. So you have to engage with people. having said that, no one wants someone all over them. You don't want to follow them through the house. What are you doing? You know? And so I always say, like, you want to stand up, welcome the person, and then say, you know, let them walk around for a little bit. But after about 2 minutes, kind of walk by, but don't say, what do you think of that bathroom? No one wants to like talk like that, but you say, are you out? You know, are there any other properties you're looking at today? Or talk about something else so they don't feel like you're selling them. And then when they leave, even if like my associates are doing an open house, they're welcome to have their own name attached to my material. And I'd suggest that they do that. And I'd also suggest that they have things. People love takeaways. I have one agent who brings pencils and paper and cookies and things to give someone, and people love her. They think that that's amazing. Now, of course, she has to do things that are kind of within the realm of what I think are acceptable. I wouldn't want her giving blow-up toys or something, but she gives really amazing cookies. They're not like a bag of Oreos opened up, but they're beautiful cookies that she invests in herself, and then she takes them to the next open house. And so little details that make you special and that set you apart are things that everyone can afford. And I have like a funny thing I say you've got to stuff your sausage, because I feel like with business, right, it's like a casing, and you have to stuff the casing of sausage, and then you have business that comes out on the other end. So everyone's always laughing. I'm like, what are you doing to stuff your sausage?
Well, like I said at the beginning, those are opportunities to establish the relationship and be unique and memorable.
Yeah, so you don't have to have money. You have to have passion and personality. And you guys, I am a super shy person. And so I'm super shy. And so when people say to me, how do you do this? If this were a party right now, I would be in the corner with my little bottle of water. Like, I can't talk to people. But at work, this is my work and this is what I do. And so for those of you who don't have that outward personality, you can do it. You have to do it. And you've got to get people engaged with you.
Yeah, well said. Any technology? You said you weren't a big tech person, but anything that you use personally that helps you stay on track, or anything your team uses, systems, anything you use that you find really valuable?
So as I said, DocuSign, if you don't have it, it's like the #1 must-have. And also with messages, whether it's, you know, something on Google or phone tag like I use, I think that's great. So you're not writing messages down. So many times I'll go back through and be like, oh, who's that guy, Bob? And I'll just put in Bob, and phone tag will bring it up from a month ago or something. But App Properties has AppWorks, which is a really cool kind of behind the scenes. I never knew what it was where you're shopping on a website and then that pair of shoes that you were looking at is following you. So I'm like, how is that following you? But we're definitely using that and doing a lot of social media, and just people in general trying to start their business without the money to use AdWorks like I use, or with what App Properties gives the company agents. But you have to keep it professional. So even though people say, oh, I've got a ton of friends, your Facebook friends don't want to see you out drinking in one photo and then another photo of your great house. You've got to have some consistency, and you've got to be professional 24 hours a day. If you want to be a really big realtor, if you don't, do whatever the business you do and keep doing your drinking photos and your realtor house photos. But I think it's important to know that people aren't going to respect you as a realtor if you're showing them aspects of your life that they don't find to be, you know, good attributes for selling their house. And even the person that drinks with you might not want to sell their house with you because they don't want that. They want to view someone in a super professional manner.
Anything else with social things you're doing, or video with things changing?
You know, we are constantly trying new things. So this year I said, let's do 3D videos. I think 3D videos are really interesting. Then some people on my team said, gosh, I'm bumping into walls while I'm using 3D videos. Let's try the new virtual tours. And in my mind, I was like, oh, virtual tours, that's so like, gosh, the spinning around in the room, no one liked that. So sometimes I'm like, do both. And so everyone's like, but it's expensive to do both. And I said, that's okay. Like for my listings, if we want both, so both are available, we do both. And sometimes I'll even ask a client, do you have a preference? What have you seen that you like? And let them be involved in some of the things. But social media, lots of different advertising means. I'm still doing print ads because I still have people that see it, but that's more brand recognition more than anything. So the likelihood of selling something off a print ad today is slim. But again, I think I want people to see my name.
Especially in the luxury.
market.
Yes, in the luxury market, absolutely. So, but things, there are all sorts of things that we use, that we track clients and that we do mailings from that are all things. But really, I'm all about this.
It's the most important thing.
It's
So it's
the most
relationship
important
business,
thing
right?
because, again, if they don't need you, they won't need you. They won't use you.
How about challenges, or what's your pain points now, or something that you and your team are working on?
In my market, that I think that the biggest challenge is resale property. So properties that are even 10 years old, but especially all of the things, I mean, in the late 90s, we were selling so much leading up to 2008. So from when I got in the business, so from 98 until 2008, we were selling so much property. And we had cherry floors and we had all sorts of things that are not what's in vogue right now. And so we've got a lot of inventory that is dated, and dated is even 5 years at this point. So what do we do with these properties that people don't want to take money out of their pockets? It's a huge problem because some aren't even dated, but 5 years is dated to this market. So coming up with unique things or just anything that makes a difference. So sometimes I say to people, your place is great, but the chandelier has to go. We've got to do it, or we're just changing those faucets, or knowing that people don't want it dated is a huge part of overcoming the problem. You have to sell to the issue, and you've got to get through a lot of these problems. That's my biggest problem right now. Too much inventory of dated places.
Yeah. Any coaching? You mentioned the book, that was great. Anything you keep, and things are changing all the time, like anything you do, regularly to kind of stay in the know? Or
I get like 10 different home magazines and I look through them and I go through and I fold corners, and I really think that's a huge thing of staying up to date on what's happening. So I definitely think that that's another thing that people can do that costs nothing. That's, in research, it's firsthand research and knowledge. But I think any sort of books about positivity are very important. No one wants to know your dog died. No one wants, unfortunately, even though they want to be up close and personal with you, they want it to be about them, and that's okay, it should be. But it's important to know that even if you're really getting along famously for someone, it's still a transactional business, and that people want to know that you're working on their behalf, and they don't want to necessarily know you're going on vacation. They want you to be there for them. So I think that that's something that you've got to work on.
And that's a great topic, is motivation, and to be positive, and the other things you do just to.
So everyone laughs at me because when I get on the phone with a client, I always have a smile on my face, but it's super important to me. Like if I'm, let's just say, arguing with my husband right then, and we're in the car, that never happens, but then the phone rings, I'm like, hi, this is Emily. No one wants to hear that anger on my voice. And it's serious, it's very sincere for me. When I do talk to a client, I do feel happy, even if I'm in a tiff with my husband a moment before. But it's just like being an actress. I'm sure that an actor or an actress on stage might feel stress, and then they turn around and they give the camera a big smile. No one wants to know really and truly what's going on behind the scenes with you. And so I think it's very important to have a smile. Not a silly smile where if there's a time that it's a serious something, but they want to hear positivity in your voice, and you have to train yourself to do that. And you have to feel sincere, because if it's not sincere, it won't come across as sincere. And it's one of my number one things to tell people when I train people. You have to be happy. No one wants a mopey face.
Right, and it comes across being in the market, people know you, and it's, oh, Emily, first class, professional, great job, but that's always, and she's just so nice and great to work with. And what better, recommendation can you give? There's lots of people you can work with, but
for sure. And I think that people want to work and be around happy people. And it's actually a little bit of a trend right now where people choose, they have a lot of people to choose, and so why not choose happy?
Yeah. Not missing, do you brand all the gifts you send out, and where do you purchase them, and do you come up with these ideas yourself? You always have something unique and memorable, as you say.
So for example, I do a lot of charity work. I really like that. But I think that you don't always want to be so in your face with everyone. Like at my kids' elementary school, I did water bottles for all the kids in the school. I did my logo, but I didn't do it with Emily Sachs Wong, Luxury Chicago Real Estate, because I thought every time someone takes a drink, do they really want that on there? They know what the logo is in general, just the shape of my logo. And so I didn't want it so in your face. And at the holidays, when I sent out olive oil, you know, like, do you really want every time someone pours? I don't want them to say, oh, Emily Sachs Wong. Like, it's enough. Like, it's got the pretty flourish in the logo, but being in your face all the time, like, pull it back and be a little, like, have a little grace to some
It's a
of the
real
things.
gift.
It's a gift. It's not like, hey, this is about me.
Promote it.
So I do think that know what you're doing, be thoughtful about what you're doing. Does your name need to be on everything, or would something else just suffice? When I give closing gifts, I just give a closing gift. I don't give a closing gift with a keychain only with my name or logo on it. I give them a cashmere blanket or something so that they think of me, but it doesn't say Emily on it, because then they won't use it. It's too much in your face. So.
Well said. Some specific ones from David. How much time do you allow before recommending a price reduction from the original listing price?
So I think it's really important to set the stage before you ever need that price reduction. So I say to people and set their expectations. Listen, we're going to know right away how the market feels about us. If the first week we have no showings, but other things are going under contract, we're going to know that the market didn't resonate with our price. Or if we have 15 showings the first week and we don't go under contract and other things are selling in the neighborhood, we'll know someone has chosen another home. And in which case, we might want to make a reduction sooner than later, because there's no reason just to hang out at the wrong price. So I think setting people's expectations is really important. And don't feel bad to have made a mistake. And in fact, the best thing you can do if you make a mistake is to say, I'm sorry, because I feel as though I may have priced it higher than we should have, but I just loved it so much. And they're going to appreciate that and respect that. And you're going to be able to save face, because if you don't mention anything and stick your head in the sand and say, I think we just need a price reduction, they're going to say, well, you told me this price. Or so I think it's better to address the issue and even apologize. But tell them why you priced it that way. I thought the market would really respond, but they haven't. They went through all of these things. So.
Let's see. Mike, when you're competing for a listing, any like key talking points you find effective? I don't know if you're big on scripts or any of that stuff, or things that you kind of go in.
Well, I speak from the heart. I really run my business from my heart, and I tell people that. And I don't frequently say, who else are you talking to? Because for me, I don't care who else they're talking to. Everyone is good competition. So I just do the best I can do. And I let people know that that's my whole thing that I'm going to do. If they choose someone else, that's fabulous. There's enough business to go around. And if you're so desperate for every deal, you'll never get any deal. So I'm grateful. I win most of my listing appointments. But I think that if you give them everything you've got and you tell them what you're going to do and they don't choose you, what more can you do? And you can't beat yourself up over it. Now, if that happens time and time again and you never get a listing, then you might want to reevaluate what you're saying to them, or reevaluate how you're presenting yourself or what you're doing. But if you're getting a lot of them, I think you have to be happy with that.
Okay. This sounds like it's back when we talked about kind of growing your team. What tasks should a first assistant be responsible for? This must be someone that was at that scary point. How do you go about delegating tasks to them for that first?
So hard.
So hard?
It's so hard. I think that anything behind the scenes. But again, like for me, I don't let a brand new assistant go out and take photographs. To me, photographs are like the number one thing of importance once you're on a listing. So you don't want to send someone who doesn't know exactly how it should be. But can you take them and train them and then hand it off to them? Yes, as long as they're detail oriented. They have to also be able to be well versed in front of a client and know they can't go in jeans even though they're an assistant. They have to be professional too, because they're a representation of you. And if you choose not to let them leave the office, which is not as fun for them, and so maybe they won't be as happy, but if you, you let them do the sending of the documents, the inputting of your multiple listing service, You have them making the calls to the attorneys, sending off documents to attorneys. All of those things are easy to do and don't require any conversation for the most part with the client. If they're going to converse with the client, it's important that, again, they have a happy voice and that they're professional and they know the details. If they don't know the details, don't put them in that path of fire, because that's going to create havoc. So they've got to be involved. They've got to be entrenched together. So share with your assistant. Make sure that you share everything.
Good, well said. A couple more. Any off-market pocket listings? Is that a part of how things work here? Talk about that.
So sometimes I just send a listing straight out to the MLS if I think that that's what's advantageous. Sometimes I think that something might be so special or it might be coveted, and so I do keep it as a pocket listing, and I talk about that with clients on the fly. So some clients come and they say, I've heard about pocket listings, and you're looking at their house and you're thinking, oh boy, this is like not so special, but if that's what they want, then that's okay to do a pocket listing, and maybe it works. I always think it's best for the majority of listings to open it up to the widest audience possible so that you reach the greatest number of people and therefore getting your client the best and biggest price. But sometimes there are listings that you know people are going to want and that you know that will be special and people will feel more enthusiastic about it. And then for sure, pocket listing is great. And again, like I have a lot of times my own buyers who I'll put into my own pocket listings, and I sometimes just make that deal happen.
How about any impact with the uptick in rates or the new tax laws?
Yes, both.
Yeah.
Both. I think that, I think we in Chicago had a little excitement in June with buyers getting out, because I think they said, wow, I think rates are ticking up. So we had a lot of activity in June. I think that the first part of the year was quite slow as people were unhappy about taxes. And so,
Especially in the market.
right. And so I think that those things do affect people. People need to buy houses all year long. So again, people are saying, should I wait? Should I hold off? And if you can't be found, you can't be sold. And so that's the thing I tell my clients. You need to be available, but you need to be available at the right price and in the best condition possible. Because again, no one wants a dog. No one wants to buy something that isn't exciting. And people always say, oh, I'm going to do a bath and no one's going to want what I choose. And as I say to people, there are those that make a business of choosing the right finishes for the marketplace. You can know, we can find you the right person, or we can look at magazines if you don't have a budget. I'll help them. And we can put the exact right thing in their bathroom or their bedding or whatever it is that they're afraid to make the investment because of, again, the knowledge.
Right.
And so if you have the confidence to be able to say that, you know, and you do know because you're out in the marketplace every day hustling and working it and keeping your eyes open everywhere. Oh, that house sold. Oh, look at what's in it. Maybe you didn't see it, but hopefully you did, because hopefully you went to the broker's open or a public open house if you're just getting started, and you're getting into every listing possible so you know that when it sells, why it sells, and you can have the voice of knowledge when you're talking to your clients.
Good stuff. Couple on this topic. What's your go-to response on commission objections?
Nobody does what I do.
There we go.
That's what I say. I mean, I say truly, like, if you want to beat me up on commission, how do you think that I'm going to operate for you? But the one thing I say is, I know that it feels like a lot of money. Again, acknowledging the issue. It's good to talk about it. To say, like, if you want someone doing the absolute best job for you, then you have to choose the person that is the absolute best with the most experience, the person who's going to give you the most. And if you're a new person and you're saying that to them and they're saying, but you just got started and why should I give you the same commission as I give that other agent who's been in the business? Or if they just want to get a deal, you might say to them, if you're looking for a deal, I promise you, you will get it with me. By giving me that X commission, you will get the highest price possible. My listings typically sell at 97% of list price. And you explain to them what it is, but you've got to have this stick down. You can't just go in and say, oh my gosh, they're asking me this question, and as though you didn't expect they were going to ask you. So it's super important to know what you're going to say and not be offended by it. And again, it's that smile, so you look easy about it. Oh, you're asking me about my commission, it's no problem. If you're bristly, they're gonna feel bristly. But I just, I say, listen, I think that you're gonna find you get more than your money's worth. And if you wanna take a discount agent, you will get a discounted process.
Well said.
You
Yeah.
you do,
If you
and
can't
that's
fight for your
okay.
own,
Right. And that's
commission price,
okay
how
for
do you
the discount
represent-
brokers.
yeah.
It's not what I do, and if they want that, then they should go get that, but then they just will have a whole different experience.
How about some predictions for not just the local market, but the business, or what you're working on personally, or what's the next thing for Emily Sachs
Yes.
team?
So I just said to my group, listen, I think that the market's going to pull back. I think that we've had so many people buying post-recession, how can it not? I don't think it's a negative thing to assume that. I think that we have to say, gosh, everyone in 14, 15, 16, they were so enthusiastic and excited, and the banks were lending again more easily. And so there were so many people that came out. And I think people bought before they thought they maybe should have. And so they were buying prematurely. Now, there's not as deep of a market as there was, and that's okay. It's back to a normal market. So I say, I'm gonna start doing more. I'm gonna start working harder, smarter, tougher, inventing new things. I mean, I don't say, oh, I sold 180 some million, so I'm gonna go hang out at the club. I say, and not that I necessarily want to do more, but I want to just make sure that we're still super current and that we're still really relevant, to use a millennium phrase, that we're relevant as to what's happening in the marketplace. And that's not only things that are done online and with new technology, but also relevant in what I'm saying to people. Because again, to me, that's the most important thing. If people can't reach me, then I'm of zero value. I'm of very little value. They want to be able to have a real-time conversation with me. That's another thing I just wanted to say. Super easy to send a text back to someone, super easy to send an email. It takes way less time. Pick up the phone from time to time. Like maybe you give 5 emails and a phone call. Like you don't every single time, because pretty soon you don't know when it's going to happen and you have to anticipate where they are in the cycle with you. But at some point, they're going to snap and pick up the phone themselves and say, gosh, I just wanted to have a real conversation with you. And if you're calling them first and you're beating them to that, they're going to appreciate that you had the thoughtfulness to pick up the phone and call. Because some things do deserve a call, and sometimes it's just nice to hear your agent's voice.
We'll do a couple more from Randy. How do you successfully pitch yourself as a new agent, especially when the market is saturated with so many brokers? You kind of talked about this being, it was kind of acting at the beginning.
Yeah.
But how did you
did
do
that.
it at the start? You're a caterer.
So, right. So I used my sales and catering. But first of all, the one thing you have to do is, I don't think that you say to people, hi, you're my first listing appointment. That's probably not going to fly. But you say, if someone says, how many listings do you have right now? Or how many listings have you had? Because maybe they have a feeling, you say, or how long have you been in the business? I've been doing this for quite some time. I mean, that is not a lie. Quite some time. It could have started yesterday, but it feels like forever. So I don't think you should lie. And if someone asks you specifically, say I just started. But what I did before this, I was an attorney. And what that did for me, I was not. But if you whatever it is that you're saying. And so take whatever you've done and turn it into the positive for how it's going to help you. I was in catering and sales, and I did negotiations and negotiated contracts and dealt with clients. And dealing with clients is what really taught me how to deal with clients today. It was all really because of how I got started. So whatever you did before is great. If you're available and you're sharp and you're paying attention to everything that's around you in the details, those clients are going to pick up on that and appreciate that.
Well said. Best places to invest your marketing dollars to build your brand if you have a kind of a small budget. So where would you put the dollars?
Local, hyper local, in fact. I think that if it's at your school, or if it's in your neighborhood on your neighborhood.com website, or if it's at your church or your synagogue or whatever. And again, if you're at those places, you're not the person in the sweatpants hanging out, having a drink. Be the professional person who is always the consummate professional. You have to be what you want to be before you are. So, and if that doesn't even take any money, just being professional. So, but I would go towards those donations to charities where you get your logo on things, or, you know, or your name on things. And people see that and notice. So is it going to be that tomorrow you get business from it? Not necessarily, but is it that you'll get it in the near future? I think yes. And again, I can't say open house is enough, and don't be frustrated. I have agents who say to me, oh, I had 10 people come and they all had agents. I say, great. Were you happy? Were you excited? Were you knowledgeable about the listing? And I'm sure they're rolling their eyes at me sometimes because you just want to buy, or sometimes you just want someone to walk in your open house and buy the property or have you be their agent. I can't tell you how many times that someone has called me, a client, a buyer has called me who's working with another agent. And I don't ever poach someone else's client, but they said, you were so happy and knowledgeable and kind at that open house, and I just wanted to work with you. So I think it works. And so be positive at those opens, be professional, be knowledgeable, suggest another property if they say. I always say to someone, how does this house work for you? And they'll say, it doesn't really work. And they'd say, well, if you go around the corner, there's another really great open house. It's not my listing. And then don't say, and tell them you're working with me. No one wants that. No one wants to be told what to do. So just let them go, and they're going to appreciate the extra information that you've given them. You're the knowledgeable person. Don't shove it down their throat. They will come back to you.
Great. Want to respect your time, but I cannot thank you enough.
Oh, for sure.
Emily Sachs-Wong, 180 million, and could not be any nicer. We appreciate you taking the time to provide. Best of luck with everything. Keep sucking the sausage. Continued success.
I think there were some kind of naughty things that are going to get turned into.
Yeah. And for viewers, tune in for more of these Gateless live webinars. We'll be doing these every couple weeks. They can be found on gateless.com, brought to you by the Guaranteed Rate Companies. Thanks for watching. All past webinars will also be recorded and archived on the site. Thank you for your time, and good day. Thanks, everyone.
Sure.
Appreciate it.